This is Stephen Welsh, President of the International Chiropractors Association, with the weekly update for Monday, July 20th. Well, I hope last week's message brought you some insight and that the homework assignment gave you an opportunity to share some very important information. Now, before I share some important COVID information for this week, information that's not being reported in the media, I need to begin with a few comments on the passing of an American hero on Friday. A hero not only to the civil rights movement, but to all Americans. A man who dedicated his entire life to ending the bias and discrimination in our society. You see, John Lewis was elected as a representative for Georgia's 5th Congressional District in 1986, a position he held for the rest of his life. And John Lewis was not just a civil rights legend. He was also a friend to chiropractic. You see, in 2001, he sponsored H.R. 2284, the Medicare Chiropractic Improvement Act of 2001, trying to get some improvements that we're still trying to get today. And John Lewis will always have a special place in the heart of the Welsh family. And let me explain why. You see, in 1989, as my daughter was nearing a graduation from high school, and I was preoccupied with my responsibilities as a corporate executive, Kristen came to me for advice. She had decided where she wanted to go to college and wanted my thoughts. You know where she decided? She wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. Can you imagine my reaction? Well, I told her that she would need to get an appointment from her congressman. Now, I hate to admit it, but having recently moved from Texas to Georgia, I didn't even know who that was. I had no political connections, but I encouraged her to do the research, to find out what the process was. And you know, it is quite challenging, not only with high academic standards, but also with demanding and rigorous physical endurance tests. And I encouraged her. And what I told her was, if she was really committed, she could make it happen. Well, to make a long story short, about a year later, she did receive the principal appointment from our congressman, Representative John Lewis. Now, I've often quoted from American heroes because their words are frequently relevant to different circumstances and different times and can be inspirational beyond their original context. Let me share with you a few inspirational quotes from Representative John Lewis. Quotes that resonate with me as I assess the state of affairs in our society, in our healthcare system, and in our profession. Here we go. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have to speak up. You have to do something. And this is one of my favorites. Faith is being so sure of what the Spirit has whispered in your heart that your belief in its eventuality is unshakable. He also commented on freedom. Quote, freedom is not a state. It is not an act. Freedom is the continuous action we all must take, and each generation must do its part to create an even more fair, more just society. Well, the longest one of all is probably the most relevant, and here goes. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. And he added, choose confrontation wisely. But when it is your time, don't be afraid to stand up, and speak out against injustice. And he concluded, and if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon for all to see, then the poetry of all the great dreamers and philosophers is yours to manifest in a nation, a world community, and a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself. Well, may that hero rest in peace. Well, with that closing thought, let's move on to the controversies of last week. You see, the media is hyping the growth of cases, and we still have the face mask controversy. And then there's the return to school was the latest great public debate. Well, first, I'd like to bring to your attention a recent study published in the New England Journal of Medicine about the spread of SARS-CoV-2, and it was a study about what happened in Iceland. You see, Iceland is a small country with a total population of about 364,000. And in early March, when they first realized they were going to have a problem, they did a population screening. It was initiated and open to all the residents who were symptom-free or who had mild symptoms of a common cold, which is fairly common at that time of year. But anyway, out of a total of 12,000 persons tested, and for those over the age of 10, there were 100 infections, for an infection rate of 0.8%. Well, what do you think the infection rate was for the 848 children under the age of 10? Would you believe 0? Would you believe that not a single child in the study had become infected? Now, we may not yet know why, and it seems that science is showing that the children are not quite susceptible to infection by COVID. Now, next, I'd like to address the issue of the antibody test. You see, I'm convinced that with 2020 hindsight, I probably had the virus back in February. You see, I had attended a Fat Tuesday Carnival celebration near Chapala, Mexico. Now, before I returned to Atlanta last week, I had the antibody test. To my surprise, the results were negative. I said, how could that be? So I did a little research, and I came across an interview with a doctor in Sweden who is studying T cells and had a few interesting thoughts that I think are worth sharing. Dr. Sue Alleman addresses the issue of the contradiction between the surging number of cases and the declining number of hospitalizations and deaths. She also explains why the crisis is not over and why the elderly must continue to be protected. Here's what she had to say.
Here to discuss that with us is Dr. Sue Alleman from Stockholm. Hello, Dr. Alleman. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm working as a doctor to take care of the patients, and also because I'm a chief at the outpatient clinic now, taking care of the post-COVID patients and running clinical trials at the Karolinska University Hospital. And also I'm a researcher, so I'm doing COVID research nowadays at the Karolinska Institute.
What's your explanation of the striking contrast between the number of cases that appears in Sweden to be going up, where there seems to be a surge, and a lot of reports look at number of cases, compared to the numbers of hospitalizations and deaths that seem to be coming down?
Yeah, and now the number of test setting has really been steeply increasing because of the government pressure. So now it's almost at, and it's been released totally free. Whatever who wants it can go testing. It means that these asymptomatic or mild cases are also being now detected. So I don't think that we have more new cases. I think we're just detecting more cases. At 10% maximum antibodies, we are still seeing that a number of infections are decreasing really much.
Do you feel like the epidemic is over in Stockholm?
No, it's not, definitely not over. It's the most sickest person being the elderly home, more now sicker than before. And every fifth person died within a month after admission to elderly homes. So I think the most of persons being now who died because of COVID-19 probably would have died shortly after without COVID-19. But that said, I think COVID-19 related death is not a good death, because being short of your breath is never good. It's not a pleasant death, and you're isolated. So, I mean, we should have really spared the elderly on this kind of death, COVID related death. This is a totally new disease. So we don't know which fraction of the population need to have antibodies or T-cell immunity to have the herd immunity. When can the elderly come out from the isolation and be more comfortable, not getting the contagious disease and deadly disease as soon as they come out? But I mean, there's been modeling before. It was said it was a 70% or should be 50%, but now, I mean, at 10% maximum antibodies, we are still seeing that a number of infections are decreasing really much.
Well, now that you've seen the Iceland study and you'd heard from Dr. Alleman, let's review some takeaways. 1, although in some countries and states things are starting to return to normal, the crisis is not over yet. 2, young children are at almost no risk. You see, studies are beginning to show that even when infected, children carry a significant smaller viral load and rarely are the cause of virus transmission. 3, a surprising number of post-COVID patients are not testing positive for antibodies, but the death rates are declining anyway. And the scientists don't know why that's happening. 4, this virus is still deadly, particularly for those in hospice care or with severe comorbidities. 5, one size does not fit all. Whether the issue is wearing a mask or reopening schools and businesses, there's no good answer. There's no answer that fits all situations. What is best in a densely populated city, particularly one that's a hot zone, may not be best for a thinly populated rural or suburban area. 6, be respectful of all your public officials. They are responsible to make the tough decisions. And understand, there are no good choices. They must select from what is the lesser of 2 bad choices. And remember, it is impossible to eliminate all risk. And finally, as an essential healthcare provider, please continue to take all recommended precautions for the jurisdiction you're in. Keep seeing your patients. Be understanding of their fears, but reassure them there's no need for mass panic. Well, that's my update for today. Please check out the ICA COVID resource page where you can find a copy of the Iceland paper. Meanwhile, please reach out and connect with the ICA. We are here for you to help you help your patients because they still do need that reassurance that there's no need for mass panic. And don't forget, you are truly their beacon of hope. And we will get through these challenging times, and we will do it by working together. Thank you.